Call to order the Board of Directors.
The invocation be led by Mr. Stroud, and then we'll follow with the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Stroud. Are there any amendments to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'm requesting to remove item 0705 entitled New Courthouse Furniture Storage until substantial completion. This item's been addressed, so we can remove it from the agenda if it's the will of the board.
Okay, do you agree to that? All the members agree?
Agree. You agree?
All righty. Now we'll go with public comment. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person. In order to afford everyone an opportunity to speak, please provide your full name and district when submitting your public comment, so it can be properly included in the public comment. I have Mr. Reverend Davis.
Some people say Sermon Davis, but it's Sherman. And my name is Sherman Davis, and I'm the pastor of Tabernacle Baptist Church. I vote in the Dalgan District, and I'm here tonight to read to you from the inspired Word of God. Ephesians chapter number 2. Apostle Paul is writing the church at Ephesus. He says in chapter number 2 and verse number 1, "And you hath he quickened who were dead in trespasses and sins, when in times past you walked according to the course of this world, according to the prince and the power of the air, the spirit that now worketh in the children of disobedience, among whom also we all had our conversation in times past, in the lust of our flesh, fulfilling the desires of the flesh and of the mind, and were by nature the children of wrath, even as others. But God," precious word there, "but God, who is rich in mercy, for his great love wherewith he loved us, even when we were dead in sins, hath quickened us together with Christ. By grace are you saved, hath raised us up together and made us sit together in heavenly places in Christ Jesus, that in the ages to come he might show the exceeding riches of his grace in his kindness towards us through Christ Jesus. For by grace are you saved through faith, and that not of yourselves. It's a gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast." Emphasis, I believe, in that verse, it is a gift of God and not of any man's works, nothing we can do to merit God's favor. We are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus, which God hath before ordained that we should walk in them. Wherein remember that in being in times past Gentiles, that be us, most of us, I think, in the flesh, who are called uncircumcision by the which cause of the circumcision, which is the Jew and the Gentile, in the flesh made with hands, that in times past you were without Christ, being aliens from the commonwealth of Israel, and strangers from the covenant of promise, having no hope, and without God in this world, meaning that the promise was given to the nation of Israel, and we were without hope, Gentiles. But now, thank God for the new covenant, but now in Christ Jesus, ye who sometimes were afar off are made nigh by the blood of Christ. For he is our peace, who hath made both one, and hath broken down the middle wall of partition between us. The day that Jesus Christ died on the cross, the middle wall of partition, the veil that was in the temple was rent from the top to the bottom, which opened the way to all men including us Gentiles, and we all say hallelujah about that. And one of the greatest misunderstandings in all the world is that good people go to heaven and bad people go to hell. Well, there's going to be some people in heaven you're going to be surprised to see there, I'm sure. They all said? Amen.
Thank you. James Robinson.
Good evening, Board. James Robertson, Shiloh District. I'm here representing my organization, 516 Project. I made a mistake and was supposed to be on the agenda tonight, but now we should be on the agenda for the next board meeting, but I wanted to still come and introduce myself this evening. We're moving our operations into King George County. We are a nonprofit organization that helps folks in need of home repairs. And so we do a lot of wheelchair ramps, handicap accessible bathroom modifications, roofing, all sorts of different things for folks in need that need home repairs, and all over this region. And obviously a lot of our work is here in King George County. But I want to say also that the staff I've been dealing with so far, Ms. Price in the Commissioner's office and Ms. Fish in the admin office have been amazing to work with. Have been giving me a lot of information and everything of what we need to do. And so it was my mistake that led me to not be on the agenda tonight to talk with y'all about some of the things that we're concerned with and would like to do with the county. But we'll be back, I guess, in a couple weeks to discuss that with you, and look forward to working with King George as we move forward.
Thank you. So if you, sir, you want to be on the agenda, please go through the county administrator. You can go through his email.
Yeah,
Okay.
I sent an email and phone message to Ms. Fish to get it corrected because I sent the message to the wrong address.
Okay, thank you. Reverend Shaw.
James Shaw, James Monroe District, columnist for the Northern Neck Sentinel. New hat, visionary. No rocket explosions this week. You folks have heard many speeches and presentations from this podium over the years. By far the majority are people who are complaining or wanting something fixed or changed. As an engineer, I live for that kind of stuff. Messes that need to be fixed, repaired, or improved. There is, however, another purpose that can be seen from these unelected people who show up to this microphone and pour their hearts out in hope that someone will hear and listen to their vision. Not all the great ideas are going to come from you guys or the consultants you talk to and hire or county staff. Our county is blessed with 29,000 people. Some are old, some are babies. Those in the middle take care of them, but a whole lot are in between. We're formally or informally tasked with making things work better, faster, more efficient, and cheaper. So look, hear, and listen to the people you represent in both formal and informal ways at this place and when you visit with them on the street or wherever. The vision for a brighter future for our county is out there. The easy path is the long, slow growth path to be Fairfax County South. The harder and better path is to be and remain that place, that special place that does not look at all like Fairfax County. For we cannot be a place of refuge if we look exactly like the place people are escaping from. So we must be all the more creative in figuring out how to remain King George on a pauper's budget. This is your visionary challenge. How do you guide the future of this special place where we live so that it can remain close enough to D.C. that it's a pleasant visit, but far enough from D.C. that it will remain the Northern Neck County of refuge, a peaceful place, a quiet place, a country place where roosters crow, cows moo, and the wind rustles through fields of wheat, corn, beans, and a little red clover. May God bless King George County. Happy birthday, USA.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else? Is there anyone else for public comment? Is there anyone online, Mr. Duns?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Is there any statements that need to be read? Hearing none, a closed public comment. Reports of the members of the board. Mr. Davis?
I have no reports tonight. I just want to thank everyone for coming out. James, I look forward to hearing your presentation next time. I've heard a little bit about you guys, and I look forward to hearing some more about that. Pastor Davis, thank you for your words, and just thank you as community citizens just for being involved.
Mr. Stroud?
All right. So, thank you, Pastor Davis, Mr. Robinson, and Pastor Shaw. So on 20 June, I met with the next bidder company on the firehouse. We had a meeting here for the dog and firehouse, and the meeting went very well. And I'm optimistic that we'll get a much more significantly bid this time to review. But our constituents need to have confidence that we're working the issue smartly, and we seek to obtain a nice firehouse that's a great price compared to the initial budget from last year. Seems like I get comments from people, whether I'm at Food Line or Tractor Supply, and people thanking us for continuing to work that and not just going with the old status quo. On 21 June, I attended the change of command at Dahlgren, where Captain Orvik has assumed command from Captain Minarski. That was a really good event. I've attended a lot of those in my time. Most of them were Marine Corps change of commands, but the Navy really seems to up the ante with that. I'd also like to take a moment to remind folks that if you use a farm vehicle plates, because I've got those myself, and the law was changed as of yesterday, as of 1 July. If you've been using the plates that you get from the insurance, Farm Bureau, we give them out, or you can get them from Tractor Supply. You can't use those anymore. If you have a vehicle less than 7,500 pounds, then the plates must be obtained from DMV. So it's easy to miss that change in the law. The state did that. I'm sure that county attorney knows about that. But now you have to display a plate in the front and the back of the vehicle, and it doesn't apply to vehicles that weigh over 7,500 pounds. But I know somebody's parked a Chevy Camaro with farm plates at Food Line before. They've been going to Food Line with a Chevy Camaro, and I'm not quite sure how that works. But you may not want to do that now. And that's all I've got to say now, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Sullins?
Thank you, sir. I'll echo what's been said so far about thank you for coming out and for being engaged. My report tonight is fairly quick. Got to attend the CPMT meeting this in the past 2 weeks. That's kind of a subset of the social services group. They look at providing alternative education programs for children with special needs. Also got to attend the George Washington Regional Commission meeting along with Ms. Bender. And earlier this week, we got an email back from them, and they say, congratulations to King George County and Carrie Eves of the George Washington Regional Commission for an award of $856,458 in VDOT Transportation Alternatives Program grant funds for sidewalks and crosswalks and traffic signal improvements near the King George County Middle School and Routes 3 and 206. Information supporting the King George County grant application was included in the King George Courthouse Bike and Pedestrian Plan completed in 2023 by GWRC Transportation Planner Carrie Eves and the King George County staff. I've gone back and asked, who specifically on the staff worked with them on that. I haven't gotten that information yet. I'm hoping Mr. Bender can help out. Mr. Clark, thank you, sir. We do appreciate the work that you put into that. Thank you very much. And then finally, All Points Broadband. I was reached out by a member or a resident, part of our community, earlier this week. They live at the beginning of a street, and they did all the appropriate paperwork to get All Points Broadband brought into their home. And for whatever reason, APB skipped them and continued down the street, hitting the rest of the houses on their street. They've tried to go back and forth a few times with them to get them to come back and fix it. They've had little to no success. So I'm going to try to dig in with APB and see what happened and why. But Mr. Chair, I would recommend that maybe in the near future we try to get APB back in on the agenda for a discussion on how things are going and what we can expect out of this.
Mr. Stallings, I believe that's, read my mind. I think we've got them on the July 16th agenda. I believe that, I'll confirm that, but I believe that's slated.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Lee?
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming out. I have nothing major to report for this week. Just want to thank everybody for coming out, everybody online, and hope everybody out there has a wonderful and safe Independence Day this week. Thank you.
Davis, you have an additional comment?
I did want to address that. I know in Dalkin area, there's been some issues with Potomac Drive and some of those things, and Mr. Stewart reached out to me, and I don't think I addressed this yet. And I just went back and tracked the emails, and these issues have been going on for like 10 or so years, but that's something that we're looking at as far as taking off the six-year plan, because the 6-year plan I know turns into like a 12-year plan a lot of times. And me and Mr. Stewart were trying to wonder why they call it a 6-year plan. It never works out, but taking it off of that, because I've gotten so many calls from them, and I might address this before, but I just want to let people know that that's as far as the ditches and things in that area and the flooding that's going on, just addressing those things. And I think I did address that at the last meeting, but I just wanted to address it again, that's something that we're looking on, taking on next January and getting those things finally fixed for those people.
Thank you, Ms. Bender.
Yes, thank you very much for everyone who came out and spoke. Mr. Robinson, you're in my district. I wanted to tell you something. At GWRC, they have talked many times from other localities about, is there a program to help people fix their homes so they can stay in their home for whatever reason? So if get your contact information and get you hooked up with GWRC, there might be another avenue that might help your organization, because there are other local counties that are looking for an organization to help folks fix up their homes so they can stay in their homes for whatever reason, or vets to retrofit their homes. So I want to put you in contact with them, because I've heard it on a couple of years now, people talking about it from other localities. So it could be a win-win for more than just King George, the organization. So thank you for joining us in King George. Before vacation, I got to speak at UVA at a meeting of their Executive Leadership Institute. It was pretty cool. First time I'd done a panel like that. It was with folks from HB 206, the committee that I was on concerning small renewable energy projects, basically solar. So I thank UVA for inviting me to be part of the panel. It was fun, and it was good to hear the questions that were asked, because I know that solar is going to be coming in front of us at some point, and it's been a target of this region. So thank you, and it was a good opportunity. Mr. Solon's already talked about the GWRC meeting we were at, and he stole my thunder on the grant. But one of the things, Mr. Clark helped put that together, and the staff, and if anybody has dropped off their kids at the high school or middle school or gone in the morning or the afternoon, they know the amount of walking from Presidential Lakes, from other developments, or kids. I've even seen someone, I think, walking from Project Faith every morning going to the high school. So it's really important that we make that area safe for our students and those that maybe do not drive to be able to transit very safely up and down that corridor. So I'm glad that we can start that process. I also attended a town hall with Mr. Smolnik and with Senator Mark Warner, where it's basically just a town hall he does from time to time with every region to hear from the elected officials and constituents. Mr. Smolnik and I kind of tag teamed and hit him up about our DOD grant and kind of given us a little extra push so that the award for the firehouse and his aide came up and asked for more information. So hopefully that'll be a little help to have Senator Warner's a little harder endorsement to help us get that grant. But we also brought up, and I know every time I have an opportunity, I get up and I talk about the water and the service authority and helping have grants available that we can apply for communities to all these energy goals and all these Chesapeake Bay Act goals. But if you want us to meet them, help us meet them. And unfortunately, a lot of the federal programs we don't qualify for because we have too high of a median income. But, you know, there's got to be a way. If you want to mandate us to do these things, help us out, give us some opportunities from some grant funding. So that was one thing I brought up. And then we'll also, Mr. Solon's brought up All Points Broadband. I've been reached out to by the same person and a couple other residents in that general area. And this has been a problem the whole time with this grant, especially in the last year. There are folks that are having the line run in through their property with easements that aren't being hooked up. And that is a problem. And I brought that up again to Senator Warner and his staff. And there was a representative there from All Points Broadband. And I've reached out before to Mr. Smolnik to have somebody come maybe a little higher up so we can talk to them about that issue, because there's quite a few residents have been passed over because they were not on the original map. And I don't understand this particular resident because their house has been there a lot longer than 2020 of why they got passed over. So that they need to come so we can ask them the questions in the meeting and get a direct answer of why these homes are being passed over, because these areas, I don't know. I don't think Breeze Line would ever come down these roads. They're very long and there would be a high cost to bring the lines down, like the cost if they had come down my road. I also attended the Rappahannock River Basin Commission with Senator Stewart and several other delegates and elected officials. One of the big things we talked about, with many other things, was about water. A lot of the communities that are down the Rappahannock River are really concerned about the amount of permitting and the industrial use that is being proposed basically to tap into the Rappahannock, and they are very concerned for their citizens and for agricultural. So that is one thing that I talk about a lot of times with everybody, but that's something that we need to have further conversations at the state level about. And Senator Stewart made a really good point about you're pushing us off because of the aquifer onto the rivers as an alternative surface water source. But there's only so much water in the rivers, so there's got to be a way we can figure it out and to make sure our citizens get the water to drink. The other thing I did get to attend last week, was a busy week, was a coalition of high growth communities with Mr. Smolnik. I invited him to attend. It was cool actually having our county administrator come to one of these meetings. I've been going to them for several years as the county representative, and it was nice to bring our county administrator to meet a lot of the folks from other localities. But we talked about industrial use, renewable energy, solar, data centers, water, affordable housing, and a new concept that's come out, microtransit. And they've mentioned that at GWRC about that. So these are all terms you'll be hearing out and about probably at the Senate and the House this year in our Virginia legislature. So that is the end of my board report. I have more at the Service Authority report, but I will pass it off to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So earlier today at 4:30, we had an opportunity to meet with the EDA and have some discussions on how we work together for economic development. So as you look forward to your 5 representatives up here, you hear some of the things they've done, but you don't hear all the things they've done because they're all working extremely hard for the citizens of King George. All of them have their skills and skill sets, and we appreciate every one of them. This board, since January 2nd, has been a board of action. They have listened to the people. They've been transparent with the people, and they're moving forward for all the things that the people in King George want. I'd like to commend the board for your outstanding activity between January and July the 1st, and look forward to the rest of the year. Thank you, and I hope everyone has a good evening. Next thing on the agenda, I'm gonna get one shot.
I have a quick follow-up, sir, based on Ms. Bender's comments regarding the water and agriculture, because sometimes people don't understand and some of the challenge there, but the agriculture draws out of the river to water their crops. And some people don't realize that. And the problem is, I shouldn't say the problem, but the challenge that is experienced is, yeah, there's a lot of water in the river. And whenever you use it for agriculture, it goes into the ground and may go back in the river. The problem is it's the salinity. Whenever we're drawing water out for us to drink out of, and it changes the salinity of the river, the salinity kills the crops. So if you start spraying it on hay, or you start spraying it on the crops, and then it kills them, and it defeats the purpose. So if the people who are drawing the water out revert to what? They just go drill a well, that defeats the state's intent of getting off of well water. And if you don't let the farmers and the ranchers drill wells for the crops and the cattle, you killed our agriculture in the state. So it's cyclical. I mean, this monster is a big, so if they have to start drilling wells to draw there to feed the crops, you just defeated the purpose. And I don't think that some of the leaders realize that. Thank you.
Alrighty. So we're going to do 7-0101, 7-0102, 70103. Are there any motions on the table?
I'll make a motion to approve 0701.01, 0701.02, and 0701.03.
Is there a second?
Second.
Properly second. Roll call. Mr. Davis,
Aye.
Mr. Stroud,
Aye.
Ms. Bender,
Aye.
Mr. Sullins.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. All right. 70104. Meeting minutes. Is there a motion on the table?
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
Second.
Properly second. Is there any discussion on the matter? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Constitutional officers. Sheriff? Any other constitutions? Iden? All right. Thank you. Ms. Bender.
All right, we are moving on now to the Board of Directors consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the full consent agenda?
Make a motion that we approve the full consent agenda as presented in the agenda.
Have a second?
Second.
We have a motion properly seconded. Any further discussion? All right, with that, can I have a roll call vote? Lee?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Solomons?
Aye.
Mr. Collins?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. We have no public presentations, no action items, no discussion items, but I have the monthly report, Mr. Rasavi, and I'm going to ask him some questions so he can give further review. The whole staff has been working the whole month and every month since January 3rd to try to get the Service Authority on a roadmap to success. That's what I've been talking about the whole time, that we need to make sure that you get one chance to do it right, and we're trying to do it right so that we can hand it off, and the staff, like Mr. Stroud had mentioned earlier, that we have a mission, a vision, and a strategic plan that can be fully executed and followed through by the leadership in place at the time that the plan is done and voted on. So one of the things that has become a challenge, especially for our two plants that are going to be decommissioned, and we can't be decommissioned quick enough, in Perkins Corner especially, is the fats, oils, and grease. And it's a topic, it's called FOG, is in the terminology and the verbiage, but it is a real problem, especially for Perkins Corner, and keeping it in consent order. So I'm going to ask Mr. Rasavi to talk a little bit more about it and to also explain what we've been doing. Mr. Rasavi.
We've been working on the process of developing an ordinance for the Board of Supervisors to adopt. We're in the process of Hampton Road Sanitation Authority has prepared a model ordinance for this purpose for its communities that are within its service area. So we're in the process of modifying that to fit King George Sanitary Authority's needs. And once we get that completed, I will pass it on to the county attorney to review. And I've also discussed with him the regulations of the service authority and the specifications are not part of the county ordinance. I have never seen them not being part of an ordinance because it's much more enforceable, I believe, is what the county attorney will tell you. So we need to take a look at some of those things. Once he reviews that draft, we'll get everybody a copy of it so you can look at it and for your input. We're also going to look at the process of, I've got the health department's list of all the food service providers in the county, and our GIS folks are putting all those on a map to show which treatment plant they go to. And we want to have a meeting with them, kind of explain what we're doing. I know it's been referenced a number of times here in the meetings the consent decrees that were under and the fines and so forth that the county has had to endure. One of the major problems is these things are not being completed. There should be annual and at least one annual inspection of these. They should be required to submit paperwork to the authority to show that their vendor is taking the grease, oil from that business and certifying that to us so we have a record of it. And most likely what we will have to do is train someone to be a FOG supervisor and inspector to go out and physically look at these sites. The current regulations refer to certain things, and when I spoke to John, I said, does anybody do these inspections? And they haven't been done. If they've been done, it's been a long time ago. And I've spoke with him, Bowden and John and some other folks, Travis. A lot of our pump stations are in serious need of cleaning. So we have developed some options, and Bowden is going to come in and instruct our folks on how to safely do that with the chemicals that will not upset the plant. And so we're going to try to put all these things together, and I think it's important to bring these businesses in. Some is the school system, anybody that serves food or processes food. And because I believe this is causing a significant financial problem for the county. And it's not going to be a quick fix overnight, but once we start doing these things, I think you will see gradual improvement in it and so forth. And Kathy's heard me say this 100 times, inch by inch, cinch, you know. So we just have to do these things. We'll keep the board informed on these things, but there's going to have to be quite an effort to amend some of these documents and so forth. And I've also done some financial reviews of the charges and so forth, which I'll be giving you a report probably next month is when I will complete that. And Patty's been very helpful looking up on the current billing system to get the information so that it's correct. And Kathy and I will be meeting with Davenport to kind of go over the numbers, how they determine some of these costs and set the numbers, because there's some things that have not been completed properly. And we will discuss all that with them and so forth and look at the possibility of possibly some adjustments.
That was a lot to take in. Do we have any questions from any of the board members on this? I was expecting Mr. Collins to have a question, but Mr. Savi, thank you very much. It's a very complex and complicated, but I think in the end, when it's all worked out, it'll be a benefit for all, and it'll be a hard adjustment because those fats, oils, and grease, I have seen a couple of pump stations that have them. I mean, you can see the lines on the top of it, how high they create rings, but it causes the system to back up, and then it causes the violations. So it's time we did it right and fixed it so that we going forward and everybody being on the same page. One of the things I brought up earlier was about the water permits. Understanding our first hop yard permit was the first one that is going to be tiered. And there is some concern about future permits when they come up for renewal, that there is possibilities that we might be tiered on those also. So looking for that alternative water source is the term DEQ lights, but as surface water is what most people know it out, is imperative that we start the process, because as I point out, when I go to meetings and I bring up about the water, I said, we're on a clock. Our clock is already ticking. We're just the first one to have the clock ticking. The rest of East of 95, it's coming to them. We're just the first one to the table for the timetable. One more thing I had. Just give me 1 second. One of the other things I'd like to point out, and this is something that had not been done before, but we're having bi-weekly meetings. Eventually what will be set up is bi-weekly meetings within Bowden, Finance, Mr. Rasavi, myself, Mr. Smolnik, and the Service Authority, Mr. Eisenbias, and some other staff members when needed to go over so that everyone's on the same page, so that when we follow this path, it'll be the right path and that the Service Authority gets back in the right way. I know you use path all the time. Hopefully come up with a different word instead of using it all the time, but it's really important that we do things right. That is all I have. Is any other questions? All right. Now I'm going to move to a secondary public comment for the Service Authority only. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person. In order to afford everyone an opportunity to speak, please provide your full name and district when submitting your public comment so that it can be properly recorded and included in the public record. Would anybody like to get up and have any public comment? Mr. Dines, is there anyone online?
No, Madam Chair.
Did any of my colleagues receive any correspondence, either previous or during the meeting? Well, do I have a motion for adjournment?
Madam Chair, I move that we adjourn to July 16th, 2024 at 5:30 PM in the boardroom of the Rivercomb Building.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion properly seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any nays? Chair votes aye. Motion carries. The Service Authority Board of Directors is adjourned. Mr. Collins.
Thank you. So 7-02, Mr. Chris Clark. The House of Representatives have established July as Parks and Recreation Month.
Yes, sir. Proclamation that I'm hoping the board will adopt. Whereas the Parks and Recreation is an integral to creating a sense of community in municipalities throughout this country, including King George County, and whereas Parks and Recreation is vitally important to establishing and maintaining the quality of life in a community, ensuring the health and well-being of all citizens, and contributing to the economic and environmental success of a locality and region. And whereas Park and Recreation programs build healthy, active communities that aid in the prevention of chronic disease and improve the mental and emotional health of all citizens. And whereas Parks and Recreation areas are critical for climate resilient communities, providing plant and wildlife diversity through parks and open spaces, and helping to reduce urban heat island effects. And whereas parks and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of a community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. And whereas the King George Parks and Recreation Department provides a multitude of recreation opportunities, including sports, camps, leagues, classes, programs, events, and trips for citizens of varying backgrounds, ages, and abilities with multitudes of interest. And whereas the United States House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month, now therefore be it proclaimed that the King George County Board of Supervisors hereby proclaims the recognition of July as Parks and Recreation Month and encourages residents of King George and its visitors to utilize and appreciate local parks, open spaces, and recreation opportunities.
Clark, on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, signed by Chair T.C. Collins, Board of Supervisors, is a proclamation. You get the staff, come on.
I got the team here. Yeah, think about it. This is about 10% of our team. We have anywhere between 70 and 80 employees on staff at a time. 9 are full-time, 3 are year-round part-time, and the rest are deemed seasonal, but many of them also work year-round between Play It Smart, sports leagues, and summer camp. So
could you introduce your staff to us, please?
Oh, that might be a test for me.
I would do that. My name is Vivian Shelton. I'm a recreation supervisor. I got a mouthpiece right here. I have a recreation supervisor on Parks and Recreation. This is some of my part-time staff. I have a total of 20 part-time staff that work under me. This is Shayna Jett. This is Jasmine Jett. Julie Huffman. Bertha White. I have the 3 here. They work the summer camp. They do Play It Smart as well. And Bertha, she's our office monitor, evening office monitor.
Thank you.
Can we take pictures of the board?
Absolutely. Yes, we should.
And then on behalf of the department, I have gifts.
Thank you. Want to see you in a hat. Put it on. Thank you, Mr. Clark. Thank you, all the folks that work at the Parks and Rec and allow our citizens to enjoy their activities. Next is action items, referendum language for the Board of Supervisors regarding pre-K through fifth grade elementary school for $57 million.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the last regular meeting, you all directed me to draft the necessary documents to have a referendum on the November 5th ballot for $57 million in general obligation bonds of the county for the pre-K through fifth grade elementary schools. So I have drafted the proper resolution. I've drafted the proper petition and the proper order. All of the documents, I believe, are in order, but I'm not a bond attorney. And so the whole basis of which you issue these general obligation bonds are these series of documents. It's my understanding that Mr. Siegel, who works at Sands Anderson, has previously represented the county on bond issuances. So I've sent everything to him. He will not be back in his office until next week, and that's okay. As soon as I get approval on all those documents, I will give those to Ms. Fish so they can be uploaded on the county website for you and everybody else to see. And I anticipate you can take action on those on July 16th at the next regularly scheduled meeting. And I can then take the petition and the order to the court for entry, and you can get this matter on the November 5th ballot.
Thank you. Is there anything that's needed tonight?
No, sir.
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Maybe a couple questions based off of the meeting that we had on 18 June. During that meeting, I had asked Dr. Boyd, you may remember, I'd asked him who or which children were able to attend the preschool. And that was based on, originally we had talked and discussed about putting a preschool in each one of the elementaries so that it made it more available, yada, yada. So he said that the children that could attend that preschool were children that were approved under a federal program. So it became made aware to me since then that that school, the preschool that exists today, that's I guess fallen down and so forth, that needs to be replaced, was closed, and then it was reopened for this program. So my questions that I have, because we're going to be asking our constituents to provide money to build a school that was based off of building a preschool that their children or their grandchildren couldn't necessarily attend because they didn't meet the federal programs, but they're still asked to pay for it. So we cannot, or I cannot, sign up our constituents to pay for a school that their children or grandchildren can attend without asking some questions. So tonight I have some questions that I didn't have that night. One of my questions is the preschool federally or state mandated? How did it get here? Because if the preschool had been closed and we reopened it for this program, there must be a requirement, or where did that come from? So as I always ask before we spend money, what's the requirement? What's the requirement that requires us to have a preschool for children that isn't open to all of our students, just these kids? So is it a requirement for our citizens to pay for this, you know, because we're asking them to vote on it. And I want them to know whether they're voting on something, if the federal government mandated it or the state mandated it, then maybe they should be paying for it. And if they didn't, then why are we asking our citizens to pay for it? Thank you.
Okay. Well, just maybe a little clarification. So the federal program is for kids that qualify, but they also have children that go to the preschool that are mentors to these children. So it's not just the federally qualified ones. There's other children too. But is it all encompassing of King George? The answer is no.
Where's the requirement? Do we have to do this? Are we asking the citizens to pay for something that isn't a law, isn't required by the law to have? And if so, why?
Okay. Mr. Smolnick? Did you get an answer by next meeting?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Is there any other questions or discussion in the matter? So it's for action, doesn't need to be acted.
Well, Mr. Chairman, the problem is we don't have the documents approved to take action. So I would ask you all to just wait until the next meeting. Even though I believe that they're drafted correctly, and I believe I did draft them correctly, if there's some nuance that I didn't catch that the bond council needs, I want to make sure that's in there.
Okay, so it sounds like there'll be a motion to table till the next meeting. Is there a motion to table?
Is it needed to have a motion to table?
Yeah, or an action item.
Okay, I will make a motion to table to the next meeting, 0703.
Second.
Probably second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. 704, transfer of county and school debt service reserve fund. Rosavi?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, in the process of my review of the budget and some of the items in the office, I came across these two debt service funds that appeared in the audit in our books, and I met with Levita and asked her if she had any idea what these debt service reserve funds were for, what debt. And she looked back into the Bright system when I think you told me it was 2008. Is that right? Yeah. That it was a journal entry, so that meant it was happened before that time. So I reviewed the audits trying to ascertain what this reserve was set aside for. And I went back to, or where we go to 202 or something like that, and still couldn't find. Yeah. And so I asked Davenport to see if they could go back through their records to try to determine, one, is it still necessary to keep these funds reserved, or had the debt been expunged so that it would free up these funds? And you have the email from Courtney Rogers, who did, matter of fact, he worked on it all day long in an effort to get this. And I believe it was a bond that was back to, is it 1992, Levita? Is a series of bonds that were refunded, but basically in 2011 they were defeased, so there was still no requirement to have that money set aside. So in consultation with the auditors, basically what you would do is approve in the form of a resolution to release this money from these two funds. It's no longer necessary to be in reserve, and it appears in your audit right now as committed, which will basically go back to the unencumbered fund balance of about 1.1 million.
Is that an exact number, 1.1?
The exact number, do we have the exact number in there, Levita? Yeah, it's in the resolution. $1,149,876.57.
Board members?
I just have a comment. So after that, so I have a comment after in discussion, but I was going to make so moved from what Mr. Wasabi read, because I don't have it right in front of me to reread it.
Okay, is there a second? Second. Properly second. Is there any discussion?
Yes. I just wanted to thank Mr. Wasabi and Ms. Cobb because they have been doing hard work looking through this since the budget on the Service Authority side and the Board of Supervisors, and have found a lot of these monies that were just sitting in accounts that they're moving into the general fund, and it's just, they're cleaning up the accounting, and I commend them and thank them, and they've been saving the citizens money and finding things and bringing it in so that it's in the general fund where it belongs and not just sitting out there doing nothing. So thank you.
I'd like to second that and say that Mr. Zavi he's definitely more than paid his way in the money that he's found in saving the county. Thank you very much, sir.
So Mr. Rosavi, just make sure I'm clear with this $1.149 million was sitting in a reserve fund doing nothing.
That's correct.
And now it will be transferred to the general fund.
Yes.
Okay, you could probably second in discussion. All those in favor?
Does it have to be roll
By
call?
roll call. Mr.
Davis.
Davis.
Aye.
Stroud.
Aye.
Sullivan.
Aye.
And then
Aye.
chair votes aye. Thank you, Mr. Wasabi. 706, awards of goods and services agreement to Architectural Products of Virginia. Ms. Cook?
They already
I
went.
took it off.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Procurement issued an invitation to bid to solicit responses from qualified firms for the installation of the YQ wireless access control system for the new King George County Courthouse. 3 bids were received, and Architectural Products of Virginia was the lowest responsive bidder for this project in the amount of $204,360.08. Staff recommends to authorize the county administrator to execute a goods and services agreement with Architectural Products of Virginia in the amount of $204,360.08, subject to approval as deformed by the county attorney.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. So this, when the courthouse was approved, this is not directed at you, Ms. Cook. This is just a statement and discussion. So when the courthouse was approved for the amount of money that it was approved for, Mr. Bell was there, and I asked him that there be no add-ons, no further expenses, and he stated in the minutes that there will be no more. If you look on the blueprints, there's a copy over there. It shows you where all these automatic doors are supposed to be. And then Mr. Smolnick and Ms. Fish researched all the minutes of all the meetings. So I don't want to pay that money for something they should be doing. Board members, do you have any comments on this?
I do, Mr. Chair, since I was on that committee. I know, and Sheriff Giles could even reiterate, we spent a whole day having a detailed discussion about the importance of having the no keys and the swipe cards. And so my understanding, and I think everyone that was on that committee, is that all the doors were going to have swipes, except for certain doors that have to be, for security reasons, have to have keys, and they were very minimal. And so I, as a person who was on that committee and looked at my old minutes, I don't understand how that got miscommunicated. And I know Ms. Cook has nothing to do with it. She's just the person who unfortunately has to sit up here and hear us. And so I thank you for standing there. But this should have been taken care of, because it was very direct from everyone on that committee that it was supposed to be swipe keys. And so this is ridiculous. And I know I used to speak all the time, especially on the middle school project, that change orders were ridiculous. The whole point of a CMR, construction manager at risk, was no change orders. But here's a change order. So this needs, I don't know how we resolve this.
Sheriff, do you like to weigh in on this? It's your building.
No, not my building. I just provide
care of it.
security for it. Everything Ms. Bender said is correct. I mean, it's absolutely spot on. I mean, the only place that was supposed to be keyed was the holding cells. Everything else was going to be swiped. So I can't really add anything more than Ms. Bender did.
Thank you.
Confirm what she did say.
Thank you. So the committee talked about this. Sounds very extensive. Mr. Smolnik,
Mr. Chair,
yes, sir.
I have a question. So, then the county attorney can weigh in, but the state of Virginia, like verbal contracts are still contracts. And if there was a meeting and that was discussed and it was covered, then there was probably meeting minutes that were captured. So then the contractor could be maybe held responsible for that, right?
So is it in a verbal contract only good for a year?
Well, I mean, yes, verbal contracts can be adhered, and there are certain things such as part performance and other things that weigh into that and the evidentiary nature, so you could prove it. But I think just the approach is we go back to them on this one and say, this wasn't the understanding, it was clear, and you need to do this, and we're not paying for it, and then we'll deal with them as we need to.
Is that the will of the board?
Yes, sir.
Can we get a motion for that?
I'm going to try to craft a motion. I will make a motion that our county attorney and our county administrator go back to Mosley Architects and Branch Builds. It's the subcontractor, correct? Yeah, the contractor to remedy this concern about the swipe blocks and paying for them.
Okay. Is there a second? Second. Properly second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Thank you. Smolnik. Thank you. Alrighty. 707, naming of bridge over the Machota Creek on Route 301, James Madison Parkway in King George County as the Deputy Craig Lamont Brooks Memorial Bridge. Sheriff Giles.
Yes, sir. Just waiting for 1 second. Indulge me. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Deputy Craig Lamont Brooks was born and raised in King George County. He was a graduate of King George High School and continued his education at Virginia State University, where he studied political science. Deputy Brooks transferred to Rappahannock Community College, where he studied business management. Deputy Brooks was always a happy and got along with everybody. He was also a good worker, honest, and very dependable. Deputy Brooks was a member of the Antioch Baptist Church located in King George, where he was a member of the youth choir and the usher board. Deputy Brooks was a member of the Rappahannock Big Brothers and Sisters organization. On January 1998, Sheriff Dobson hired Craig as a full-time deputy sheriff. Tragically, on May 15, 1998, while traveling home after attempting to complete his shift, working the evening shift, Deputy Brooks lost control of his assigned patrol car and crashed. Deputy Brooks was transported to Nova Hospital, where he succumbed to his injuries. The King George County Sheriff's Office requests that the King George County Board of Supervisors sign the following resolution naming the bridges over the Machotic Bridge on James Madison Parkway as the Deputy Craig Brooks Memorial Bridge. The resolution reads as follows. Naming of the bridges over the Machotic Creek on Route 301, James Madison Parkway in King George County as the Deputy Craig Lamont Brooks Memorial Bridge. Whereas Deputy Craig Lamont Brooks of King George Sheriff's Office, King George, Virginia, was killed in the line of duty on May 15, 1998. Whereas Section 33.2-213 of the Code of Virginia authorizes the Commonwealth Transportation Board, also known as the CTB, to give suitable names to state highways, bridges, interchange, and other transportation facilities, and change the names of any highways, bridges, interchanges, or other transportation facilities forming a part of the systems of the state highways. And whereas Section 33.2-213 provides that the Virginia Department of Transportation shall place and maintain appropriate signs indicating the names of the highways, bridges, interchanges, and other transportation facilities named by the CTB, and requires that the costs of producing, placing, and maintaining such signs shall be paid by the localities in which they are located. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the King George County Board of Supervisors, in accordance with Section 33.2-213 of the Code of Virginia, does hereby request that the CTB name the bridges over the Machotic Creek on Route 301, James Madison Parkway, in the county of King George as the Deputy Craig Lamont Brooks Memorial Bridge. Be it therefore resolved that the King George County Board of Supervisors agrees to pay the cost of producing, placing, and maintaining the signs, calling the attention to the naming.
Thank you, Sheriff. I think that the board will probably, I can't speak for them, but I believe it'll be unanimous. This is a discussion, so we'll put it on action for next time.
Understood.
The will of the board is that to approve this. Is that correct?
I'll speak. Yeah, he was actually a classmate of mine. We played football together. He was a friend, and I've gotten some correspondence from some other people in the community, like Jerry Lester, who was one of his best friends, and people want to see this happen. I know we like discussion first, but I really don't see a reason in some matters like this, if it'd be possible, the board could come to agreement that we make this an action item tonight, because I think we're all going to agree on it anyway.
Mr. Davis, if you had like to make a motion, help yourself.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to the naming of the bridge of Machotic Creek on Route 301 James Madison Parkway in King George County to the Deputy Craig Lamont Brooks Memorial Bridge.
Second.
Properly second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Aye.
Is there any discussion? All right, thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
How long did it take to get the sign up?
After you sign the resolution, we'll have to turn the paperwork in, and then it could be 2 to 3 months.
Is there going to be a ceremony?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
708, award of goods and service agreement, computer cabling technology service incorporated for countywide fiber phase 2. Ms. Cook?
Procurement issued a request for proposal to solicit responses from qualified firms for the installation of countywide fiber phase 2. 2 proposals were received. In-person interviews were conducted, and Computer Cabling and Technology Services, Inc. was found to have submitted the lowest responsive proposal for this project in the amount of $368,540. The project received CIP funding for FY22 in the amount of $358,000, an additional $15,050 was approved from ARPA funds September 6, 2022. Total funding available is $373,050. Sorry. The project will include 6 of the 8 segments because there's not enough funding available for all 8 segments. The segments will be Route 3 and Dahlgren Road, Dahlgren Fire Station 2, Dahlgren Wastewater Treatment Plant, the EMS Radio Tower, Fairview Beach, Potomac Landing Fire Station 3, Fairview Beach Water Plant, which is the Potomac Landing aerial utility poles. The segments that were not included were the Port Conway Wastewater Treatment Plant and Port Conway Water Plant. The second phase of the IT redundancy plan will provide fiber to King George Fire Rescue Emergency Service and the Waste Service Authority wastewater treatment and water facilities. Staff recommends that authorize the county administrator to execute a goods and services agreement with Computer Cabling and Technology Services, Inc. in the amount of $368,540, subject to approval as to form by the county attorney.
All right, we'll put that on action for next time, unless anybody has a heartburn on it. Okay, we'll put it for action next time. Thank you. 709, County Administrator's Report. Mr. Smolnick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I've got several items for the board tonight. The first one is, I've been working intently with the Community Development Department, starting to look at the subdivision ordinance and the zoning ordinance of King George County. it's the Board of Supervisors, from my review, appointed a zoning administrator in December of 2023. The zoning administrator is a third-party consultant that the county has on contract. To the best of my knowledge, I cannot find anywhere where a new subdivision agent has been appointed. And to properly administer the zoning ordinance and the subdivision agent, the board does need to appoint a zoning administrator for the zoning ordinance and a subdivision agent for the subdivision article. So is my recommendation to this board, until such time that additional staff can be brought on in the community development department, that they appoint myself, the county administrator, as the zoning administrator and the subdivision agent for King George County. And I have provided a resolution. It's been reviewed by county attorney to its form, and that is my motion for the board right now.
A motion from the board?
I'll make a motion to approve by resolution Mr. Smolnik as the zoning administrator and the subdivision agent.
Is there a second?
Second.
Properly second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Chair
Aye.
votes aye.
Thank you.
For another job.
Thank you, sir. So at the last meeting, I talked about the vacant position for the RCC College Board appointment. I spoke to Dr. Jesse Boyd. He is looking to take on this, and he has stepped up to the plate to fill the unexpired term of Ms. Bush. I believe it was June of 25 was the expiration date. So we look for an appointment of Dr. Jesse Boyd to the RCC College Board.
Is there a motion?
I will make a motion to appoint Dr. Jesse Boyd, King George County School Superintendent, to the RCC College Board.
Is there a second? Second. Properly second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Dr. Boyd is now the RCC Board appointment. Go ahead, Mr. Smolnik.
Mr. Chairman, that Mrs. Bender's motion was for that unexpired term of Mr. Bush. Is that correct?
I can redo the motion to make sure we got it.
Sorry. Mrs. Bush, I'm sorry. I'm just
Yes.
determined that is what your motion was for, is just for that unexpired term.
Correct. Do you need me to restate it again?
So,
Okay.
can you amend the original motion?
I will amend the original motion. I would like to nominate Dr. Jesse Boyd for the King George. He is King George County School Superintendent to the RCC College Board appointment for the unexpired term of Ms. Bush that goes until June of 2025.
Second to the amendment.
Second.
All right. All those in favor of the original and the amendment?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. All right, thank you. Mr. Smolnik?
Okay, moving on, I've received a request for additional funds for FY 25-26 from the Department of Juvenile Justice, 5th District Court Service Unit. This is for electric monitoring of youths. Now, I had a conversation with this entity yesterday. Now, typically, outside agencies are part of the budget process in the spring of the year for the upcoming budget. And my question to them was, why wasn't a request submitted whenever the Board of Supervisors was reviewing the upcoming FY25 budget? I didn't get a very good answer why it was, but the request is before us right now. For outside agencies, I strongly encourage her to be part of the budget process next year rather than coming in with a request on day 2 of the fiscal year budget. So their request that I said I would put in before you is for an additional $40,000. And then the way this program works is if a juvenile is detained, there's a cost of $250 to $300 a day for secure detention. The option would be for electronic monitoring, an ankle bracelet or something very similar to that. And that is at a cost of approximately $45 a day. And the Department of Juvenile Justice has clarified that detention alternatives are the responsibility of the locality, and that state positions cannot provide the required services. So you have the information that was presented to me, I just summarized to you, request for $40,000. And should the board be so inclined to entertain this motion, let me look here. I know Ms. Cobb sent me the motion.
Did the other, localities, what did they give?
I did not, so my understanding of my conversation is it's the locality in King George would be responsible for the King George juveniles. And they provided me some information. I wanted to see, what, they give me a 5-year look back. And for starting in fiscal year 20, there were 10 youth served for 341 days. And then for 21, 22, 23, 24, the number of youth serves respectively for those 4 years were 11, 11, 5, and 5. Now, a good thing is in 21, there's 422 days of monitoring, 460 days in 22, and then it dropped to 155 in year 2023 and 163 in 2024. So the number has come down. So this is, this is for the board's consideration. So really your alternatives are to, if a youth does get into some issues, to let them stay in secure detention, or if this funding is available, it'll allow them to be out, be in the community with their families.
Mr. Skolnick, she had some information that I wasn't aware of, that it's not an outside agency, so we might let her explain.
Okay, maybe that's why it did not come to the county as part of your budget process.
Right, that is correct. So it's actually the CHIN's budget. So currently for fiscal year 25, you all approved $86,823,000 for their budget. They want to increase that by $40,000 to go through the CHIN's budget for the electronic monitoring. What happened is they were in the process of going around to each locality trying to increase their request. They came to King George late because we typically approve our budget later. So they had already gone to Caroline to do that. And so they missed us basically because we approved our budget earlier than they expected. So that's why this came after the fact.
With those numbers, just loose math, it comes up to 8,325. So why do they want 40,000?
In my conversations, it's tough to predict the future. Unused funds will be returned to the locality in which they were allocated from. If we want to go a lesser amount, because you're right, it's a good trend. It's a positive trend that we're on. If the board feels comfortable with a lower number, as the year goes on, they may run out of funds. They may come back to the board, or it's just there's no other funds available for electric monitoring. You're staying in secure detention.
So what I think I heard there is a pay-as-you-go option. In other words, we can fund what we think is appropriate, and if they need more money, they can come back later.
There's always that option. Yes.
Brown?
Yes, sir. So the $80,000 was for what?
Majority of that is actually for the payroll for the CHIN's officer that is located in King George. So their operating is only $21,419. So they're just asking for an additional $40,000 on top of the operating.
That seems like a backdoor kind of way to get a position.
Yeah, and so the kids get in trouble. They're either held in detention, or the option is taxpayers save money by letting them back into the community where they obviously did something wrong in the first place, and we have to pay to monitor them. So they get a better deal. It just costs us less for them to get a better deal.
Yes, sir.
I think that one of their problems is there's so many of them going, they don't have enough room. They want to put the least offenders on home incarceration.
Yeah,
but
I'm again,
I would be interested in 10,000, and if they wanted to come back, they could. Does anybody else have that view?
I personally, I say give them a cot and tents. And at a very minimum, let them work it all picking up the trash in the county.
Mr. Chairman, I think that the CHINs, and Ms. Cobb can correct me if I'm wrong, that's another side of juvenile justice, which is children in need of supervision. And there's been a big push for many years to try to keep children out of the juvenile justice system so that they're not in detention where perhaps they learn worse things than they knew before they go in there. And so they try to divert them, and this ankle monitoring is another way to try to divert them and tell them, you know, you got to fly straight, you got to do your homework, you got to go to school, all the things you're supposed to do versus being in detention. So I could be wrong, but I believe that that's what this program is about, because sometimes when you put them in secure detention, they come out worse than they were when they went in. And that's sort of the idea behind this, I believe.
Well, you have to do a lot to get into juvenile detention. You know, it's not your truancy and all those things. This is usually kids that need to be away from people. So, but I'd like to make a motion to approve $10,000 to support detention alternatives.
Mr. Chairman, if there's a motion, if it is $10,000, I suggest the board make a motion to approve the transfer of, if it's $10,000 from the general fund contingency line item to the 15th District CSU professional services line.
Is that what I said?
Sure.
I'll say so moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
I got a discussion.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So how many youths do we have right now in King George wearing ankle monitors?
I don't have that number, Mr. Davis.
I mean, are there any right now?
I think Deputy Shriver would know that there's some.
But any money we give into this would be used strictly for King George kids. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. I would just like to, I'd like to have an idea of like how many do we have right now? And I do think that we need to get a process in place, not to punish them, but I think it's more of a responsibility thing. Because I don't think people are aware of that when their kids get in trouble, that it costs, like they just think they get in trouble. They don't understand that it costs everybody else money to take care of it and deal with their situation. I think there has to be a way for them to, I'm not looking for their parents to pay for it, I guess. So what I'm looking for is, like Mr. Stroud did mention, we need to put something in place where they work this off in some capacity in the community. They work to pay for their own monitoring. Yes, we're paying for it, but they can't pick up trash. They can't do certain things that we need around a community. And I think it just drives home to them the effect that they're having on their own community. That's just not them. They're not their own little boat sailing in a storm, that they affect everybody. With that, I say, aye.
They always say it's cheaper to educate than incarcerate.
Well,
So the motion's on the table.
it's a roll call, is it not?
It is. So, Mr. Davis,
Aye.
Mr. Stroud,
Aye.
Linder,
Aye.
Rollins.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Thank you, board.
All right.
Next item is just it's a brief engineering update. So I've been looking at the engineering department. Mr. Quesenberry, as the courthouse is wrapping up, he's looking to, I think, finally retire. So talked to the staff, looked at their workload, tried to throw around some different options. My goal, my plan to hire a full-blown PE. Now I pulled the numbers from Ms. Cobb about the salary amounts in that particular department. There are two individuals currently employed in the engineering department on a full-time basis. My goal is to bring this in as a full-time professional engineer, which will have a cost to it. So I'm not done crunching the numbers yet on what I will need. I will be coming back to the board probably for a request to allocate additional funds to the engineering department, less what we're paying our part-time engineer to fund a full-time position. So let me finalize these numbers first, and then I will come back to you. And one of my questions, we learned this with the community development positions. We had been advertising in a few different areas, and then we put it on for community development, the American Planning Association, which is a all planning, professional organization. I got 9 applications in 5 days. between that and, just putting out my LinkedIn page. So you need to know what your target audience is. So I'm working with the engineering folks to figure out exactly who do I need to target. So that's just a general update. I have nothing really further on this particular topic, but I wanted to let you know where we stood and what my plan is going to be. Mr. Stroud?
Sir, I have a quick question on that, and I know you're working on it, and, you two are definitely earning your pay. But with that position, we're going to post a PD, position description. So have we aligned like PDs for the people that already are there, like what tasks that they're doing? And so we generate a requirement if we have a requirement, and then we see what the existing employees we have qualified to do, can do, can't do, shouldn't do, and things like that. And with that, we had also discussed the training education for the county employees, and I had asked that a policy be put in place that if a county employee attends training or education and the county pays, we pay for that, or we pay the transportation or the hotel, whatever it is, and that employee leaves in less than a year, that they have to pay that money back. And additionally, they have to have a certain grade point average. They can't just go in there and pass by the skin of their teeth and get the full payment. That if you want to get full payment, then you get 95% above and so forth. But there'd be some requirements set in there, so some expectations. That way, whenever county employees get qualifications, certifications, they can't just take a job in Stafford or somewhere else and we lose the money. Thank you, sir.
I agree with you, Mr. Stroud. So yeah, and I'm assessing the staff members with their duties, and that will help refine me and point me to a very specific job description of the duties of the new position.
Mr. Stroud, I agree with that, except for one little point on the grade point average. I was a D student, and look at me now. So don't discount those that don't do as good as others, as long as they pass the course.
Set expectations. You're never going to get higher if we don't set a higher expectation.
I hear you, but not everybody is an A student. Don't forget the rest of the world. So anyhow, so Mr. Smolnik is working on that right now. So thank you for that update. What's next?
Fox's Way. So at the last board meeting, there was a presentation on Fox's Way, which is the main entrance to the high school with Heritage Hall. I've done some digging with the help of community development staff and located the site plan. I've been in contact with David Beal of VDOT. He kind of gave me some marching orders. So the site plan went back to David. Looking at the site plan, and there's a very clear note on one of the sheets that was sent to him. The infrastructure, the roads that are intended on the site plan are intended for acceptance into the state system. And then he also had some questions about right-of-way. 80-foot right-of-way is already there. It's shown on the plan. So what we need to do is, I believe we will need to develop a plat, a right-of-way plat to dedicate the 80-foot, and then VDOT will walk that Fox's Way to identify a punch list of what items may need to be upgraded or accomplished in order to bring it into the state system. So we are making progress on that. I've kept the presenter at the last June meeting up to date. He's very well aware of what we're doing, but it's all trending in the right direction to get this into the state system, and it was always intended to be in the state system.
So you've been in contact with the lawyer for Heritage Hall.
Yes, sir, I have.
I hope you intend to ask them to pay for that punch list.
Will do.
Anybody else on that? Anybody else? Next thing.
So we touched on this already, but we will have a presenter from All Points Broadband at the July 16th meeting. So I just wanted to reiterate that. So any questions that your constituents may have, I encourage them to come out to this meeting and maybe hear the presentation, and this will be a chance to look at All Points Broadband in the face and ask their very pointed questions from the citizens and the Board of Supervisors. Mr. Stroud, do you have?
Yes, sir. So that's not.
Stroud, can I get him to finish his report and then ask questions? Please, sir.
So the last item on my report is a reminder that the Independence Day celebration at Sealston Park is going to occur Saturday, July 6th. The performance by Radio Sparks will begin at 7 p.m. and fireworks at 9:15 p.m. And that's the end of my report. I just want to tell everybody have a safe 4th of July, and I'll be happy to answer any questions on the material that I presented.
Mr. Stroud, do you have a question in regards to his report?
I did. It's the same as the comment you made to his last one without asking a question about, and so I basically was making the same type of comment to that. But regarding the broadband, whenever broadband comes to brief, is there going to be a public comment specifically for the broadband? Because we have a public comment period, but if he briefs and there are people here that have questions, then that means we're going to set up here with a laundry list of questions to ask him, or is he available for people to ask questions? That's essentially my thing. If we don't set up as a public comment period specifically for that, then people aren't going to be able to ask that.
There's 3 public comment periods.
So that means that Tom Jones has to stay here until the last one for the questions. Is that what you're saying?
I have a suggestion based on what Mr. Stroud is saying. Could this, for this meeting, because this is a topic in this county that's very important to quite a few folks, is after the presentation from Mr. Innes that we could have added a public comment section in there so that then Mr. Innes can come back and maybe address questions.
So you can make a motion to realign the secondary public comment for after the broadband presentation.
I will make a motion for the July 16th meeting to have an extra public, realign the agenda to add an extra public comment after the presentation from Mr. Innes from All Points Broadband to allow for citizens to give input and ask questions that Mr. Innes then can follow up and answer.
Is there a second to that?
I second the motion for open a second public comment for the broadband.
Right, properly second. Is there any discussion on it? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. All right.
We'll take care of that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Board.
No informational items at this time. Secondary public comment to address meeting business matters. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person in order to afford everyone an opportunity to speak. Please provide your full name and district when submitting your public comment so it can be properly included in the public record. Is there anyone that'd like to make public comment? Anyone online?
No, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Has anybody received any written correspondence since we've been here? Seeing none, I'll close public comment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn to Tuesday, July 16th, 2024 at 5:30 p.m. in the boardroom of the Rivercombe Building.
Second.
Properly second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you very much, board members. Have a great night.